We are live. Welcome to the webinar today. So this is the Traders Journal with Marisa here every Wednesday. Thanks for joining. And today we are talking about mindset shifts. So most traders don't fail because their strategy is bad. They fail because of the way that they think. So today I want to break down 4 mindset shifts that separate struggling traders from those that actually break through and finally become consistent. So in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to break down 4 mindset shifts that finally helped me to stop hesitating, to stop overthinking, to control the doubt and the fear, and to finally actually trade with clarity and with confidence. And I'm really passionate about these shifts because it really did help me. So before I became a full-time trader and a performance coach now, I struggled for a long time. I broke lots of rules. I busted and blew loads of accounts. I think I've made every mistake in the book. And my journey of failure, I'm really pleased and grateful that I had that because I learned a lot. But when I put this, when I linked the dots between strategy, psychology, and mindset, it made such a difference. It was like day and night, and my trading changed, and I was able to change, and I was able to start behaving differently because it is your thoughts that actually drive your actions, and the way that we think is really important. It's as important as the strategy, and in my view, it's actually more important because it's the foundation. You can't do anything without this being really solid. So your strategy can be fantastic, but if you on paper have a great strategy, you've tested it, you've even demo traded it, it's great, you've even had good trading days with it, at times it's brilliant, but you constantly run into that difficulty of trusting it, trusting yourself. You keep making mistakes where you start blowing any profits that you did make. It's not your strategy. We've got to kind of come back towards you, and it's your psychology, and more importantly, it's actually your mindset, which is the basis. So I'm going to just dive straight into it actually, but I want to just dive into that a little bit. Like, what is mindset versus psychology? So the way I like to think about it, it's kind of like if you want to build a house. Your house plans, the plans for your house is your strategy. It's great. It looks great on paper. You can even render it on 3D, drawings. You can see the house. It's going to look amazing. And you can kind of visualize how great it's going to be when you can trade that strategy. It's like you're visualizing living in the house. Okay. Your psychology is the materials that you're going to build this house with. So you're going to have to source some good, solid materials so that you're not building a house that's going to be blown over in the first storm, right? So your psychology is just your behavior. It's how you behave when you are trading that strategy. And if you're behaving in a way that is filled with fear and doubt, hesitation, then over trading, revenge trading, I've been there. I've done everything. I know exactly what it's like. And it's very frustrating because why can't you control yourself? I used to just be like, why is this so hard? Because I had this vision of this strategy. I had the vision of that house. It's there. It should be so good. It could be so good. But my psychology wasn't great. And that's basically the building materials that you want to build this house with, okay? Now, what is mindset? Mindset is even deeper. It's the foundations of the house. So if you're building a house, it doesn't matter how good your building materials are or how amazing that plan looks for the house, so how good your psychology is and how good your strategy is. If you're building a house in a swamp or on sand, quicksand, or in a river, that house isn't going to stand up. And that is what mindset is. Mindset is also, we talk about beliefs. And in this book, Douglas, he wrote the book Trading in the Zone that I think all of us have read. I've read it multiple times, and I still have a copy that I put notes in. I keep pulling, principles out of there. It's just such a go-to book. And you should read it multiple times to really absorb it, at a cellular level. But he talks about beliefs, and you will always revert to your beliefs. And I think the first time I read that book, I was like, okay, beliefs. But I didn't really understand what that meant, because how do we even get to our beliefs? If it's not something that we're that aware of, how do we even start to know what they are and then know how they impact us? So what mindset is beliefs, okay? And it is the foundation that you're building everything else on. And it's often subconscious. It's things that we're not really that aware of, that is a belief. But it's so strong. It's got such a strong impact on us that it will affect everything else you do, because it affects your feelings towards things, and it affects the way you think about things, and therefore it affects your actions. So sometimes when you've got a great strategy, you're starting to do some things right, and you're sorting out your psychology, you can still sometimes come unstuck and blow some profits, blow accounts even, and it's frustrating. But often it could be because you haven't really sorted out your mindset yet. So today's session is kind of to start looking at 4 mindset shifts that I found really helpful. These were the big ones for me. There's quite a few more, and I'm going to go through them in future episodes, but I really like these. So let's dive straight into it now. First one, just got some notes here so that I don't speak for 4 hours. I want to keep this to a nice 20-minute webinar today. The first one, okay, so the way I'm going to also talk about the mindset shifts is that profitable traders think one way and struggling traders think another way. And you need to have the mindset shift from the way a struggling trader thinks to the way a profitable trader thinks. Okay, so the first one is that a profitable trader plays to win, and a struggling trader plays to not lose. And I think when you first think about that phrase, like playing to win versus playing not to lose, it's very subtle, because you might be like, well, what's the difference? One's just the opposite of the other. But there's a huge difference in the way you're going to behave when you're playing one way versus the other. So when you're playing to win, your focus is on achieving a goal. You're going to take calculated risks. You're going to be brave. You're going to be focusing on the winning part of trading. Let's focus on trading. But this is relevant for sports as well. So if you follow any sports teams, they're not thinking about, oh, we don't want to lose. They're thinking, how do we win? Even to the last minute, they're playing because they want to win. They believe that they can win, and their focus is on winning. Now, when your focus is on not losing, the big difference here is that you're going to be consumed with fear, because you are so scared to lose, and your focus is on not losing, and your behavior is going to be fear driven, and you're going to be terrified of the outcome of losing, because your goal is to not lose. Okay, so I want to just wrap this one up. I hope that's really clear. These are very simple concepts, and but sometimes you might not be aware that you're thinking one way or the other. But the first one is, and I hope you're taking notes as well, the first one you need to just start thinking about is that, are you playing to win, or are you playing to not lose? And here's the big shift that's going to happen when you change this, your thinking on this, is that when you play to win, you're going to be focusing on executing your edge, because it's your edge and your strategy that is going to allow you to win. You're not going to be focused on, is this a loser? I don't want to lose. You're going to be focusing on your edge, and you're going to be able to execute. When you're focusing on not losing, your focus actually is on protecting your ego. And I know that might be a bit jarring at the moment. You're like, I don't do that. But just these things, just think about it, okay? These are just concepts to start thinking about. And if you're a bit, if what I say in this webinar offends you a bit, it's because we are talking about beliefs here. And beliefs that we currently have are very powerful. And when someone points out a belief that you already have or suggests you change it, it can be it can have an impact on you. So if you're having any kind of feelings or, if anything I'm saying in this webinar impacts you, don't focus on that. Focus on the fact that why am I impacted? Is that actually a belief I hold or isn't it? These things aren't going to change overnight. It's going to take a while, but just being aware of them is the first step. So playing not to lose is playing to protect your ego, and it's going to keep you stuck forever. This is a really big one to start shifting. Okay. Let's move to number 2. So, profitable traders are committed to success, and struggling traders want success. Again, it's a very subtle change because it's on the face of it, it's like, well, what's the difference? Well, there's actually a huge difference to the way you're going to think and behave when you're committed to success versus just want something. The thing is, wanting something is just not enough. You can want something as badly as you want. It's just not enough. You have to put yourself over that threshold and say, I'm committing to this. Because when you commit to something, it's just going to change. First of all, it changes that mindset, that belief, and it's going to therefore change the way that you behave, the actions that you take. And when you need to do things for your trading, for example, you need to have a short meditation before you start trading, or you need to journal a trade, or you need to keep records, or you need to review your trading at the end of the week. When you're committed to success, you might have a moment where you're like, oh, I really don't feel like doing that, but I'm committed to this. I'm going to do it. Everything becomes non-negotiable. There's no, when you just want something, it's easy to be like, oh, I just don't feel like doing it, so I'm not really going to do it, but I still want that thing. You're just not committed. You haven't jumped in, like whole hog jumped in and just said, I'm here and I'm doing this no matter what. It changes the way you behave. It's a very subtle change, but it's really important because wanting is just not enough. It's not going to put you into that category where things just become non-negotiable. As uncomfortable as they are to do, or as much as you don't want to do something, there's a big difference once you've just committed to something, and it is going to change the way you behave. Okay, let's move on to number 3. This was a cool one. So profitable traders focus on opportunities. Slip of the tongue there. They focus on opportunities. Struggling traders focus on obstacles. Okay. Now, here's the thing about focus is have you ever played the game Red Car? So you're driving around, you're driving on a trip, and you're all bored in the car, so you play the game like counting red cars, whoever counts the most. When you're looking for red cars, all you see are red cars. When you're not playing the game, when you're not looking for red cars, do you ever notice red cars? You probably don't. I would imagine you don't. You wouldn't, if you drove to the supermarket the last hour and you've come back, I bet you can't remember what color cars were on the road. What did you see the most of? Because you weren't focusing on that. And what you put your focus on is really important. And if you're focused on opportunities, and it's the same as focusing on positive things, but if you're focusing on opportunities, so there's always an opportunity for you in the market, in your life, in your trading, there's opportunities all around. Maybe you're trading silver now and there's an opportunity on gold because the chart just looks better. Maybe you've got a funded account, there's an opportunity to get a second funded account, and grow your portfolio. Maybe there's an opportunity to, there's opportunities everywhere. And if you're focusing on opportunities, you're going to spot them. Okay, maybe you don't have to actively be looking for them all the time, but if your mindset, your belief is just, I'm looking for opportunities, I'm not looking for obstacles, I'm not looking actively for everything that's standing in my way, because when you're looking for that, when you're focused on that, it's all you're going to see, and you're going to be frustrated. Everything's going to be an obstacle. Whereas if you're focusing on the opportunities, those obstacles, you'll just overcome them because you're like, I need to be ready for the opportunity. Okay. So, for example, this is an example. Okay. And I think it's very, it happens to us as traders all the time. But once in a while, your account that you put your trades through might go down, or your internet goes down. Okay, we have technical problems, and this has happened to me a couple of times. Or there's been maintenance on a brokerage account. Okay, and if you are focused on obstacles, you see that as, you're like, it's so frustrating. You're like, I was going to do all of this and this is now standing in my way, and you get very upset about it. Now, is there anything you can do about it? If you call your internet provider and you're like, well, why is my internet down? It's like, well, we're doing maintenance for the next 3 hours. Okay, it's an obstacle. But if you're focused on opportunities, your focus should be on, okay, when the opportunity comes up in 3 hours, when I'm back on the charts, if I'm focused on this obstacle so badly, I'm not going to be in the right frame of mind to trade well when it comes back on. So I need to focus on when I have the opportunity again. What am I doing with this time I have now to prepare myself? Because especially when it comes to trading, there's always new trades coming along. It's like a bus stop. There's always new opportunities. And sometimes if you're too focused on the obstacles standing in your way right now, you're going to put all your focus on that, and you're going to miss the opportunities when they come. I'm not saying that that event isn't annoying, isn't frustrating in the moment, and you can't have a little vent about it, but get it out of your system and then think, am I ready for the opportunities when they come? Because that's where your focus has to be. You can't focus and get totally bogged down with obstacles, because there'll always be obstacles. Okay. So, I think I've covered the big important thing is you're going to be so bogged down with seeing problems and obstacles everywhere if you don't make this shift. And when you start seeing opportunities, it's going to just change your outlook in a very substantial way. Okay, so that's number 3. Getting on to number 4 now. So the final one that I think is in my top 4. So these are my top 4 mind shifts that I think made the biggest difference for me. Number 4 is profitable traders are bigger than their problems. Struggling traders are smaller than their problems. And again, this one could hurt because you might find this a bit offensive if you're like, well, I am struggling and I'm not smaller than my problems. Look, even when you're bigger than the problem you have now, there'll always be a bigger problem. So when you have problems, you need to think, not focus. Again, this kind of ties in with focus on obstacles versus opportunities. But when you've got a problem, you need to not focus on how big that problem is. You need to focus on, how do I grow to become bigger than this problem so that I can just solve it? Because when you're bigger than the problem, they seem small fry, right? When you become that bigger person, there's going to be a bigger problem coming down the path. Okay, so if think about anything that you do, let's think about a job. When I first started my job, I was a graduate at an accounting firm, and I had to go and do the stock takes. And it was so difficult. There was lots of people to deal with. I had to be in the warehouse walking around with people. I didn't understand really how the layout worked. I wasn't sure if I had taken the right sample size. It was just quite overwhelming, and everything was a bit of a problem when they were like, oh, that stock's actually not in the right place. I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Everything seemed like a problem, and it was stressful. It was difficult. 4 years later, when I was a senior manager at the accounting firm, when a graduate, called in sick, couldn't go do a stock take, and I had to go do one, there was no problems. It was so easy for me. Because I had grown not only in my abilities as an accountant, but grown as a person. So when I got there and I was faced with a difficult person, faced with someone that didn't want to show me the specific stock I wanted to go and count, someone that moaned about, anything, all these things that used to totally frazzle me as a graduate. When I was a manager, it was just so easy to problem solve these things. Sure, I had experience, but nothing was a problem. Like I could just deal with them. That didn't mean it wasn't a problem, but I wasn't overwhelmed by the problem because I'd grown. Now it's similar with so sorry, back to how big problems are. But as a manager, other problems came up, huge problems that were big for me as that person. So suddenly problems that used to seem big seemed really small, but other problems came down the pathway. There'll always be problems. And if you can always approach a problem with thinking, how can I grow to overcome this problem, become bigger than this problem? So right now, your problem is you're stuck as a trader. And instead of focusing on that being the problem, like, oh, I'm just stuck, you're not going to get anywhere. Think about how can you grow to undo those problems. And you're doing that right now. This is growth. This is where growth is. Growth is in diving into our beliefs, our mindsets. As uncomfortable as it might be, this is going to help you to grow so that you become the person that can deal with whatever problem comes down the path. And as a trader, there's always problems. There's always problems that are going to come. Sometimes it's a market problem. Sometimes the market, when Trump's been making some announcements, it's a problem. It could be a problem depending on your strategy. Sometimes, so for me, I trade Forex, over August, prices just ranged. It was quite static and ranging, and my strategy likes a trend. So that's a problem. That used to be a big problem for me 4 years ago. It used to be the undoing of my account. That's how I blew my first account, was in August. Now it's not a problem. I understand that might happen. I trade for some of August, but I'm also aware of there's a point where I kind of accept, like, okay, it's going to range. All that's in store for me really is losses, most likely, for the rest of the month. So I'm happy to sit out for 2 weeks and wait for certain breaks of certain levels that tell me that, okay, we're back into a bit more volatility. And sitting on the sidelines for 2 weeks is not a problem for me because I know that my strategy is going to, come up with loads of trades when the markets are right again. But this used to be a huge problem for me 4 years ago. And with trading, there's always problems. If it's not technical problems, it's, maybe there are times when you make big mistakes and you might blow an account. How are you going to solve that problem? How are you going to solve technology blowing up on you? How are you going to solve markets just going into ranges or going into cycles that don't suit your trading? Do you tweak your strategy slightly to adapt to market cycles? Do you maybe trade a totally different strategy for those specific cycles? Do you change the instrument you're trading? I'm not sure how you're going to solve those, but you are your own boss as a trader, and you need to grow so that you can handle whatever comes down the pipeline at you. And that's how you start solving these problems. There'll never not be problems. You'll never fix everything. There'll always be new problems, but you're just going to learn how to grow as a person. You're going to keep growing. Okay. So those are the 4 mindset shifts I wanted to go through today. They're really, really powerful. So let's look at some actions. Like, how do you even start sorting this out? Because, okay, this is nice. Now you're aware of these mind shifts. You might be aware that, oh, actually, I do think that way and not this way. But how do you start changing this? Well, number one for anything that you want to change is awareness. You need to be aware that that exists and that that's how you think. Okay. So one is write these down. Write them down, the 4 shifts, and just review them before every trading session. Review them and think and consider it. You can form part. This can form part of your 2-minute, 5-minute meditation. Maybe you just reflect on these 4 mindset shifts before you trade. It's awareness and just reviewing it, contemplation, putting it in your, like, putting it as, like, if you're looking for red cars, if this is your focus, if it's in your awareness, in your focus, you're going to see it all the time. You're going to see when you think one way versus when you think the other way. And that's going to make you aware of when it's happening and how you think. And awareness is the first step to being able to go, maybe I think the other way. And over time, it won't take that long, but it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, so I like to put kind of 2 to 3 months on it. If you've got the awareness and you kind of keep it's in your focus and you're aware of it, it's going to take 2 to 3 months for this belief to actually shift. And once you've shifted a belief, it's done. You then have that belief. I naturally think in these ways now. It's not even it's just so natural to me because my beliefs have shifted. But I had when I was first presented with these mind shift ideas, I did think the way a struggling trader thinks, and I wasn't even aware that I was thinking like that or I had those beliefs. And now that they've shifted, I don't have to think about them anymore. So you start building this foundation that's really solid. And once you've built the foundation, it's there. It doesn't crumble, but it does take a while to change because beliefs are so ingrained in us. And maybe when you go and reread Mark Douglas's book, Trading in the Zone, when he talks about beliefs, they might make a bit more sense to you about how powerful they actually are. And that's why it's really powerful to start thinking about what your beliefs are, becoming aware of them, and making these shifts. So I'm going to leave you there. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. If you've got any questions, post them in the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want to join any of our coaching programs, these are the kind of things I actually coach on and help with. So if you want to join any of those, there'll be a link somewhere. Reach out to City Traders Imperium. They've got a lot of coaching programs that they can help you with. A lot of people in CTI willing to help you with your trading. So there's lots of chats in the Discord. And mainly, we just want you to become a profitable trader and enjoy your trading. So I'll see you hopefully next week.